I make a lot of videos talking about nasal breathing and why it's so much better to breathe through your nose versus breathing through your mouth. I also talk a lot about taping your mouth shut to help encourage breathing through your nose while you're sleeping as well. But what if your nose is blocked? And not just when you're sick, literally all the time. This happens to a lot of people, and they don't know what to do when someone simply says to start breathing through their nose more. Well, I'm gonna show you exactly how you can unblock your nose, whether you're sick or your nose has always been blocked and you've never been able to use it properly. So first of all, the reason that your nose is blocked is most likely because your nose has been dormant. When you don't use your nose and instead you breathe through your mouth most of the time, then your nose will end up being blocked. And the reason is when your nose is blocked, your breathing tends to increase because then you resort to mouth breathing. And when you breathe through your mouth, you end up breathing a lot faster and quicker. And when you breathe faster, then you reduce a lot of this CO2 in your body. Because when you exhale, that's when you release carbon dioxide or CO2. This in turn sends a signal to your brain that your body's losing too much CO2. So in turn, your body starts producing more mucus in your nose to try to slow down your breathing. But instead of slowing down your breathing, now you keep breathing through your mouth and then your mucus keeps going up and then your nose will end up being dormant for a long period of time. Now, to unblock your nose, you have to try to reverse this and you have to focus on increasing the CO2 in your body. Luckily, there's an exercise that can help with exactly that. But if your nose has been dormant for a long time, then you probably have to do this exercise multiple times throughout the day, and then your nose will probably be runny for a couple weeks if you keep this up. But if you keep this up and you do it correctly, after a couple weeks or so, then you won't have to keep doing this exercise. Now, before I keep going, you might also have a deviated septum. About 60% of the population have what's called a deviated septum, where their septum in their nose is not fully straight and it can actually block part of their nose. But just know that even people that have deviated septums, most of them, when they're able to properly open their nose, it's not a problem and they can still breathe through their nose normally. So the exercise goes like this. You just take a normal inhale and exhale. And preferably you'll do this through the nose. And after the exhale, you will hold your breath. So I like to hold my nose shut and put my finger over my mouth to make sure I'm not breathing. And then you're gonna bob your head back and forth while holding your breath. And you're gonna keep doing this until you have a medium to strong urge to breathe. Now that is the key here. You don't wanna hold it too long. If you're dying to take the next breath, then you held your breath too long and you're gonna negate the benefits. So make sure you only have a medium to strong urge to breathe. Now once you're done holding your breath, then you're gonna recover by breathing through your nose normally for a minute. A good gauge to see if you held your breath long enough is if you can comfortably recover your breathing in 1 to 2 breaths. If it's taking like 3, 4, 5 breaths to recover, then you held your breath too long. Then after 1 minute of this normal breathing, then you're gonna repeat this exercise a total of 6 times. Now instead of bobbing your head back and forth, you can also jog in place or even go for a walk. All this is doing is just increasing the circulation in your body and also increasing your CO2 levels. So the exercise is gonna look like this. That's if I was bobbing my head. I can also jog in place, like whatever it takes. If you're in public, you don't have to cover your nose and you don't have to bob your head. You can just go for a walk and no one will really know what you're doing. After doing this 6 times, your nose should open up. But like I said, if your nose has been dormant, then you'll probably have to repeat this exercise throughout the day multiple times and keep doing it for a couple weeks. Another key thing here is you don't want to go back to mouth breathing. Once your nose is open, make sure you keep using your nose because once you go back to mouth breathing, then your nose will quickly clog up again. Now, this exercise alone may not be enough for everybody. Some people will have to properly clean their nose before doing this exercise. So if this exercise wasn't enough for you, I'm gonna go over a series of steps to properly clean your nose first. So first, just blow your nose like normal, just 1 nostril at a time. Blow your nose and get as much as you can out. Then you're gonna wanna do a saline rinse in your nose. I know this doesn't sound fun, but it's basically something you can irrigate in each nostril to properly clean your sinuses. So I know a really popular one is called the Neil Med Sinus Rinse. You can get it on Amazon or any drugstore. When you do this, you wanna make sure you're leaning as forward as possible. This will prevent this rinse from getting down your throat. And this also helps it enter all your sinuses. And also when you're doing this sinus rinse, some of this rinse might enter your ears. That's normal, it will come out on its own. But you can prevent it from entering your ears by making this "k" sound as you're doing it. So as you're irrigating your nose, you make a "k," "k," and this will make sure it doesn't get into your ears. If you're doing this properly, the rinse will go in through one nostril and come out the other. Now, if this rinse does enter your ears or doesn't all come out when you're done, don't worry, it will all work itself out eventually. Then after you're done with this, you're gonna wanna use a nasal decongestant spray in each nostril. The brand that I recommend is called Xlear. It's spelled Xler, and it's a nasal spray that has xylitol in it. The reason I like xylitol is because it's a surfactant, it's an antibacterial, and it's an antifungal, so it can really break up a lot of the mucus and other stuff that's in your sinuses. If you really want to focus on opening up your nose, you can do this up to 5 times a day in each nostril, and then again, blow your nose after. And lastly, if you have allergies, take an anti-allergy medication. Whatever your favorite one is, whether it's a Claritin or a Zyrtec. I know this might seem like a lot of steps, but once your nose starts to open up and you can properly use it, then you won't have to keep doing this. And as you keep this up, you'll also notice that your allergies will probably come down as well, because your nose is kind of like a filter. It filters out a lot of dust and viruses and bacteria and other particles, and it also tempers and humidifies the air before it enters your lungs, which lowers a lot of inflammation in your lungs and also prevents a lot of these irritants from entering your lungs, which can cause allergies. So quick summary, if that exercise alone does not work, make sure you do those steps to open up your nose. Those are really important. And then do that exercise after. Now lastly, you wanna make sure you keep up with this nose breathing as much as you can throughout the day. And that also means breathing through your nose at nighttime. So before you go to sleep, you'll wanna use 2 things. One is that mouth tape I was talking about, and the second is a nasal dilator. So the tape that I like is called 3M micropore paper tape, which is basically just a medical grade tape you can rip off and put a piece over your lips. It's the cheapest thing you can get, and it's safe for your skin. And the nasal dilator strips I like are those Breathe Right strips you can get from Amazon. You can also get a different brand called Mute, which is an internal dilator. And those are things that you basically put on the inside of your nose and you can crank them open to help open up your nostrils. Whatever it takes, whichever one you like better. Now, if all of this doesn't work, if you do all these steps to properly clean your nose and then you do that nose unblocking exercise and then you tape your mouth shut and do that nasal dilator, and you're still not able to properly breathe through your nose, then I would say it's time to go see a specialist. Go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor or an ENT. What you don't want to do is ignore this, because no matter what, it is not normal to not be able to breathe through your nose properly. If you have a super stuffy nose, this could also mean fixing potential sleep apnea that you might not even know that you have. Because a lot of people that have blocked noses, when they unblock their nose, their sleep apnea suddenly disappears. Let's look at this study. This study was looking at people who predominantly breathe through their mouth, and then it had them tape their mouth shut before they go to sleep to encourage nasal breathing. 65% of the people showed significant improvements in their sleep by just taping their mouth shut. They had less snoring, and also their AHI score went down. Your AHI score is basically a measure of how severe your sleep apnea is. So if that number goes down, that's great. There's also other studies showing the same thing when people just use a nasal dilator or just use a nasal decongestant spray. So if you combine all of these things and then properly clean your nose and do all these things that I said, then your nose should really open up, and then it's gonna really help your sleep as well. And this can also be an alternative to getting a CPAP or even a surgery. But again, if it doesn't work, make sure you go see your ENT. You've probably heard of Zyns before. They're getting really popular, especially among younger people. And it's basically this smokeless nicotine that doesn't have any tobacco in it. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how these Zyns might be affecting the health of your mouth. So why are people using these Zyns in the first place? Well, the main reason people are doing it is because they think it helps improve their focus and their